you see in front of you is a lot of locks. This is primarily what you want as a Locksporter. Locks. We all want locks. So I've got a lot of different types of locks here. So I'm going to start over this side. In the UK we see loads of these. These are rim cylinders. This one's made by Yale. Another company over here is Union, and you see these, they're the completely round bodied ones. And you'll also see these, which are exactly the same, the Union, but they're actually a screw-in mortise type, but it's exactly the same. And for our purposes, between the three, it doesn't make any difference. Next we're getting on to padlocks. Pin tumbler padlocks in various disguises. You get to the more weird and wonderful padlocks. These are plastic ones. They're called lockout tagout locks. This one, if you take it apart, if you pick it too far round, you actually dump the pins out the bottom. So I've done that, and what I did was take it apart, fix it, and then just put a couple of zip ties around it to hold it in place. There's also a barrel lock, which is again pin tumbler. These are primarily American, hence US. And also you can get puck locks. These are for back doors of vans, containers, that sort of thing, where that sits against the plate, and then you've just got access to that. Other padlocks you can get are disc detainer padlocks. This is one called an Old English, and it's a piped pick that's needed for these. This one's a Chub Cruiser, and you can tell that by the letter P type keyway. Moving on to Euro cylinders. This is a standard Euro cylinder, can be installed either way. The cousin is an oval, again can be installed either way. This one happens to be what's called a thumb turn, so inside the house you would be able to lock it and unlock it using this. This is another Euro, but this one is called a dimple, and it uses keys that have dimples cut into them on both sides, and it slides in and picks. It's exactly the same configuration as a standard Euro. It's just basically the keyway is horizontal rather than vertical. Moving on, we have lever locks. Now, you have to let me get this right. This one is a non-curtained sash lock. You'll notice there's only, sorry, no, this is a deadbolt, because there's only the locking mechanism. If you get the locking mechanism and a catch, that's a sash lock. And this one has got a curtain that goes around the top of the keyhole. This is the deadbolt version with a curtain on it. Moving on, we have some more padlocks. These are combination Padlocks, another a small square padlock. These two are what are called warded padlocks. They have little discs that you need to bypass. A furniture lock, like what you'd see on, in this case, an old style money box. This one's been picked open. This is called a shutter lock. It's used in industrial units, and these arms go in and out as this is picked. There are a couple of other locks that I haven't shown. Oh, missed one. This is a wafer lock. These use little shaped wafers instead of pins, and are commonly found on lockers, filing cabinets, that sort of thing, where this bar just locks behind a rod and it stops it being opened. The other lock I haven't mentioned, and I'm going to use, oh, hang on, I've got one here. This isn't a great one because this is off my trailer, and you can see as I put it back in that it'll move. This is designed to go on and lock the airline off on the trailer that I use. It's called a tubular lock, and it uses a tubular key. This is quite commonly called a barrel lock and a barrel key, and you'll see what I mean now, that the whole thing does turn. When you're putting this on, you have to pull it out, lock it in place, and then turn it and lock it. And finally, on my collection, we've got this, and this is called a smiley. And there's a key. So that's your locks. What about your picks? Well, you're going to need some different picks to be able to pick this vast array of locks. So our standard pin tumbler locks, we would use rakes or hooks, along with one of these or one of these, and this is either bottom of the keyway or top of the keyway tensioners. So what that actually means is, let's put that down, you're either keying coming in from the bottom of the keyway, so you could pick that way, or you go in from the top of the keyway and you're picking that way. So that's great if you're using pin tumblers, and a vast array of these are pin tumblers. We'll pick on the tubular lock because that's the last one we did. If I was using this and I wanted to pick it, I would need to tension it with something like this, which is from Sparrows, designed by Lock Noob. It is the goat wrench, and it either goes in that way or that way. And because this cylinder I've already shown you moves, it's going to be a bugger to tension using this. But what you would normally do, let's get that to lock in, is start picking by pressing down on the pins, and on this one there happens to be 7, so if I wanted to pick this 360 degrees, I'd actually have to pick it 7 times to start, and then it moves round to this position, and so on. so end up having to pick the whole lock 7 times to get it back to there. Alternatively, you can use like one of these cheap Chinese tubular lock picks, and put that in, and as you turn and put pressure on, what it's actually doing is pushing these rods here up, and you'll end up where you can actually see the rods are at the heights of those pins correctly. They're okay, they're not brilliant. To be fair, there isn't a lot of people that pick tubular locks. If you wanted to, for argument's sake, decode combination lock, you'd use a very thin probe, and you go in the side, you find where the gates are. I'm not sure where they are on this, and then as you turn, you would feel it all of a sudden go in. That's the gate. Once you've found all 3, it's just a case of moving them round one number at a time until you get the open. Some people argue that's not picking, that's actually decoding. Okay, the wafer lock. Now with this, it's going to be very hard to try and tension there, because there isn't a lot of room for your tension tool. Trying to tension with this is no good, because there's wafers there and there. So what you would need is either one of these, where on this lock it doesn't actually fit, or one of these. This is just a Y shape, and it's used to spread. Now the picks you'll see used for wafer locks are like this one, commonly called the Snowman. You get one with just one ball, which is obviously a ball pick, where it's vertically, do that, that's like half Snowman, and basically you go in and you're picking both sides at the same time. Other picks that can be used in conjunction with this are Sparrow's Octo Rake, because that's designed to rake in and out, or the Warlock, and again that's designed raking in and out both sides, turn it over, rake it in and out both sides, and eventually it will open. Again, I'm not doing any picking today. Okay, let's move the camera back. The dimple, we'll pick on this one. To pick this, you would need a new set of picks. These are commonly called flags. Now you get these Z tension bars, and you just try and work around the camera again. Slide that in down the side, and then this is a flag, because obviously, like the name states, and you get these in left versions and right versions. Basically 2 sides, and you're either going to push the pins down that way or down that way. So what you do here is go into this corner just here, and as you tension, you're trying to turn to pick. Now with these, you're ideally tensioning the opposite way to which you are picking. So as I'm turning it clockwise, I want to be turning the tensioner anti-clockwise. Padlocks, they're just pin tumbler. I will get to that one in just a second. For the Chub Cruiser, I haven't got any Chub Cruiser pipe bits. What I have got is a pick that's called a 2-in-1, and you've got one tool that slides in and out of the other, 2 prongs, and they spin independent of each other. You work it in and you literally would be tensioning, and as you're tensioning on that, you're picking on this one. This is a very tight fit on this one. This was actually made for me for another Chub Cruiser I've got. On the Old English padlock, now you'll notice this has got a stump, so what we need is some way of tensioning it. Now this is called a pipe key, so it goes on and can turn and tension. Just loosen those off. And with all lever locks, you're going to use a picking wire. So this would go in, and you turn that whole thing. Oh, this is just so awkward around the camera. It doesn't help that that's twisted. Okay, so that goes in, and turn the whole thing round, and as you're applying pressure, you're trying to lift the levers. Get that one out. With the non-curtained one, and this one, as you can see, only has 3 levers. So what we need is one of these. This one was made by my friend Rob Locks. Yeah. Same principle, and this is you normally do this in a vise. You put tension on the bolt, and then you're trying to work the levers. What I'm actually doing is twisting, and you're trying to lift the levers. On curtained versions, you're going to try exactly the same. You use similar sort of tools. These sets are actually Andy Max sets. and when you put everything in, it goes in actually upside down. You turn it, and then what you're trying to do is, as you're putting pressure with this tip on the bolt, you're trying to actually lift the levers, and it's just like trying to pick pin tumblers. Obviously, the more secure stuff is, the more things that are in the way to defeat you, like false gates. Try and show you what I mean. No, I'm too far through. This is really awkward trying to do this holding it with the camera. So you'd normally try and lift the levers. I've just trapped this. I'm trying to be lazy and use sort of one lifter for all the different locks. So that's your levers. When you're coming to disc detainers, and these keys, as you can see, are cut at angles. What I do have here is the acrylic version, the see-through version, and you can see there are discs there. Okay, that's locked, and as we move it, you see those discs there move. As they start to move, the whole lot rolls over and the shackle's released. These are good as training tools to show you how the lock works. Don't be fixated on trying to pick these. What you would need to pick these is something along the lines of this. This is a cheap Chinese disc detainer pick. The first thing you need to do is line these discs back up and put your pick in, put tension on, and then it should be, as you start to pick, try and do this so you can see it's actually turning those discs. And you can see there I'm turning two at once. That's because these picks are pretty much cheap, cheerful Chinese rubbish. The first thing you end up doing with these is stripping it down, sanding inside there, sanding outside there, bit of machine oil, and then you have to work on this tip. This tip is far too thick even for these discs on a training lock, let alone trying it on something like that. And finally, we're coming back to a padlock. Now you can see here, this is what makes up our padlock. We have springs. These here are our driver pins, and I can't see, there we go. Underneath those driver pins you see another set of pins. They're called key pins because they're the ones that interact with your key. So if I put that down, pick on this bugger, your key having hills and valleys cut out, they will interact, and when they're at the right height, everything pops open. Oh, cool. So if I put tension on that, so as you see, as I pick these, and again, it's not designed to be a picking video, when they're all at the correct height here, so all these key pins have been brought up to this line, that's called the shear line, we can then open the lock. And you can see on this side, as long as I don't release it, all the pins have now dropped down because I've took the pick out. If I was to run the pick back in, you can see they're all there. And that's how a lock works. And to be honest, the only reason I have this one and it's pinned up properly is because I test my challenge lock pins in this. And that's about it. An introduction into locks, lock picking, what picks are needed, etc, etc. The one thing that is, for me, a must have is a vice, because although I like picking warded locks and things like that in my hand, and I never did show you these, picking in a vice is so much more easier when you're using lever locks, etc. And these are warded lock skeleton keys. So you basically, I'll pick on that one, go in, nope, didn't think this part through, did I? It is a shorter one, so let's try that one. And basically what I'm trying to do is get past the warding, that's all. No tension are needed. Same again. And it's just trying to get past the warding, you'll feel it and then it just clicks. The other ones on my keyring here are Wafer Picks, so you could try using these. I don't think you'll get them in on this one, no. And you could try that, and as long as you're putting tension on somehow. These are designed for bigger wafer locks than this. This just happens to be the first one I grabbed. I hope you found that informative. If you did, great. If you didn't, sorry. I will see you next time.